Real life science.
Roy, hit it up.
Yeah, so we mentioned this at the top of the show. A really important anniversary this year of the tragic story of Soyuz 11 and the first three heroes of Earth to die in space. We've got some links in the show notes. There's a whole wiki on it. Scott Manley has a great video. There's a NASA tribute, and I'm going to read you a little bit about it. I think this is such an important event in our history. I think it deserves some commemoration. So settle in for just a minute, and here we go. So here's the history of this. The three-man crew of Soyuz 11, which was call signal Yantar, Georgi Dobrovolsky, Vladislav Volkov, and Viktor Patsayev had entered the space station on the 7th of June. The joined configuration of Soyuz and Salyut was 21.4 meters long, with a total living space of 100 cubic meters, which gave the cosmonauts a place to conduct scientific experiments, relax, and sleep. For the next 23 days, each crew member performed his scheduled experiments, which emphasized the study of human performance under and reaction to prolonged weightlessness. On the 29th, after completing their flight plan, the space dwellers transferred their scientific records, film, and logbooks to Soyuz in preparation for their return home. At 9:28 in the evening, Dobrovolsky undocked the ship and drifted free from the space station. After 3 additional orbits, the Soyuz 11 crew notified ground control that they were beginning their descent. Mission control radioed, "Goodbye, Yantar, till we see you soon on Mother Earth." Dobrovolsky replied, "Thank you, be seeing you, I'm starting orientation." At 1:35 a.m., the retro rockets were fired automatically for a 7-minute burn, and the parachutes were deployed on schedule. Mission Control tried repeatedly to contact the crew at this time, but to no avail. When the recovery crews reached the descent vehicle and opened the access hatch, Dobrovolsky, Volkov, and Patsayev were dead in their contoured couches. The accident was a stunning blow to both the Soviet Union and the international aerospace community. Once again, the experimental and risky nature of man's venture into space had been made clear. While the 3 bodies lay in state, and the Special Commission investigated the cause of the multiple deaths, wide speculation spread in the West over the significance of the tragedy for the continuation of manned spaceflight. One of the prevailing theories was that man might not be able to survive long periods of weightlessness. For several years, there had been a serious debate among scientists about the effects of prolonged weightlessness. During Project Gemini, there had been signs that the human heart grew lazy after an extended time in zero gravity. Then in July 1969, the monkey Bonnie aboard the US Biosatellite 3 died of heart failure after recovery from a 9-day flight. However, there were other theories regarding the Soviet disaster. George Low discounted the heart failure story, and Dr. Walton Jones, Deputy Director of Life Sciences in the Office of Manned Spaceflight, suggested that the men had died as the result of their cabin decompressing rapidly. The crew was found strapped in their seats with no apparent indication of any struggle. The crew did not rely on spacesuits. Dr. Jones said that this is how they would have appeared if a valve had leaked or the shell of the cabin had ruptured. In Houston, Dr. Charles Berry, flight surgeon to the astronauts, thought that the accident might have been caused by the release of a toxic substance. MSC Director Gilruth favored the decompression theory. Whatever the cause, both Soviet and American aerospace leaders realized the seriousness of the problem and its implications for manned flight in general, and for the compatibility discussions in particular. As thousands of Muscovites filed by the funeral bier of the 3 cosmonauts on the 1st of July, Soviet President Nikolai V. Podgorny, Premier Gostyin, and Party Secretary General Leonid Brezhnev took turns standing watch as part of the honor guard. President Nixon, on behalf of the United States, told the Soviet leaders, "The American people join in expressing to you and the Soviet people our deepest sympathy on the tragic deaths of the 3 Soviet cosmonauts." The whole world followed the exploits of these courageous explorers of the unknown and share the anguish of their tragedy. But the achievements of cosmonauts Dobrovolsky, Volkov, and Patsayev remain. It will, I'm sure, prove to have contributed greatly to the further achievements of the Soviet program for the exploration of space, and thus to the widening of man's horizons. In addition, the President sent U.S. astronaut Thomas P. Stafford to Moscow as his official representative for the funeral ceremonies held in Red Square. So I raise my glass of Russian vodka and salute, and in honor of these tremendous heroes who gave their lives to forward space exploration for all of us.
Absolutely. Georgi Dobrovolskiy, Vladislav Volkov, and Viktor Patsayev, the Старых Солдат, which means here's to dead soldiers. It's an old Russian toast. Like I said last week, these are 3 world heroes that are deserving of a salute and a respect from all of us. 3 cosmonauts that made the ultimate sacrifice, and we learn from them, and we honor them. And to all of those people, Russian, Chinese, Americans, British, Europeans, and whatever, that have died in, there have been plenty that have died on a rocket launch, and there will be more that die, especially now that we're getting into the colonization of space. There will be people that die on Mars. There will be people that die on the moon. This is a price that we pay, but it is necessary. Until we are a species that are on more than one planetary body, one rock can end us in a moment, like the dinosaurs. Like this is a necessary step. Yeah, I'm a huge fucking space nerd, so for me this is awesome too. But like, this is necessary for the survival of mankind. So, yeah. Tweak, hit up yours.
All right, yeah. Salute to those guys. That was a great story, Roy. We have the Insane Curiosity. The Artemis program have 3 missions that they are hoping to go back to the moon with, which, believe it or not, it's been a long time since anybody's been on the moon. More than just going to the moon, though, what this program is hoping to do is to set up an outpost, a base, so to speak, that can become a jumping off point for missions to Mars or to Europa or further into the galaxy, which really is another step forward into becoming a spacefaring civilization. We're going to have bases to piggyback off from if we want to get further and further out into the galaxy, and this sounds like it might be the beginning of that. They're hoping to get these up there within the next 5 years, or at least start the program. The first mission is going to be mostly unmanned robots to go up and test new technology and stuff, and then they're going to start the building process. So it should be fun. It should be fun to watch. It's exciting. For so long in my life, it felt like the space program was going nowhere, and now it seems like every day there's a new story of some kind of progress that we're making. So we'll have the link for that story in the show notes. Check it out.
Absolutely. Good stuff. And while we're talking about taking those big steps forward, Tweak, why don't you hit up the next story?
Yeah. Well, speaking of Mars, China has just announced that the space wars are back on, and they are sending their first humans to Mars. And they want to do that by 2033. So about 10 years or so, a little over 10 years, 12 years. They're a long ways off. They've got some nuclear technology they want to try to use, and they're going to do the same type of thing where their first mission or 2 are unmanned, testing out all these new engine technologies and different things that they've got going on. But then they want to send humans to Mars to set up a base and do the same type of thing, have a launching off point. Now, in this article, it says that part of it, the base on Mars, they believe that other entities, whether it be NASA or it be Elon Musk, will have a base on Mars before China can do it. But it's happening. We're going to Mars. It's almost like For All Mankind is coming true.
Hell yes. Roy?
Yeah, we have another fascinating video from Anton Petrov. This one is about how some rogue planets could have habitable moons, no star needed. So some of the highlights from this, there's there's lots of rogue planets, maybe 200 to 400 billion in the Milky Way, and some of them could be close to our own solar system. They're very difficult to detect because they're not bright. They emit a little bit of infrared, and they can also be seen with lensing effects when they pass in front of other stars. But in general, very difficult to image and find. You basically see them when they interact with something else. They can be formed by planets getting kicked out of star systems by gravitational effects, or also by bodies at the centers of systems that maybe would have become a star if they'd been bigger, but they don't get large enough to become a star. A study was done to see if bodies like these, when they have moons, could have conditions for life on those moons. Think of like a body like Jupiter or Saturn with a moon like Europa or Enceladus. And the study showed that just from cosmic rays hitting the moons, it could produce water from the elements in a moon's atmosphere. That water could eventually form an ice shell and then stay liquid because of tidal heating effects from orbiting the rogue planet in a specific elliptical orbit. Now, keep in mind, this is a theory, and the mechanism has not yet been observed in nature, but, with maybe almost 400 billion of these flying around, I think the odds are pretty good.
And as we just covered, 2 weeks ago on Real Life Science, the new NASA radio telescope that's going up will be able to look for these. So we have good feelings about, the proposition of finding many of these, cataloging them, and starting to study them. Good stuff. All right. Next up, we got a couple here that are going to be a little different. Bear with me for a second here. This might not seem like space. It might seem a little closer to, last week we did Roy's UAPs, UFOs. So
they're real, man. They're real.
Dude, look at this. Look at this mining SRV driving in a cave in Star Citizen on the screen. Oh,
that's
so
sweet.
Good. Yeah. But anyways, there's a channel in the Elite Week Discord that I call, History or Truth? Basically, and this ties into a thing that's going to be coming later, but there's a theory that some people have that I find intriguing. And we've got Fight Mediocrity with Graham Hancock explains the mysteries of Atlantis and Göbekli Tepe. London Real with The Truth About Atlantis by Graham Hancock. The Joe Rogan Experience with Graham Hancock's America is Most Likely the Home of a Lost Civilization. And Johanna James, Why I Believe in Atlantis. These are interesting sort of stories that are about what if, and I'm not saying, it's ancient aliens. I'm saying, what if there was, yes, we will post a link in the Discord. Roy, if you can post that, please.
Yeah.
And it's also in the show notes of every episode of every show that we've done. It at the top, it'll say, Elite Week YouTube, Elite Week podcast, Elite Week Discord. It's all there. But the idea is, what if there have been cycles of civilization? So we know, based on, this is not a theory, this is at this point, scientifically accepted fact, that during the Younger Dryas period, like whatever, North America was sort of covered in like a mile deep of an ice sheet, and something happened which the scientists call Pulse B, which some scientists think maybe there was a massive sun storm, like the one that I did not do that part yet, that I'm about to explain in a minute. And some scientists think that it was an asteroid that hit the Earth that caused overnight a massive amount of global warming, a massive amount of those ice sheets to melt and flood a large area of the Earth in water, which was a sort of, could have been a, decimation event for any peoples, any societies that were around at that point. Now, Anton Petrov put out a video that says, the first major solar storm of a new cycle, the sun is awake. He shows in great detail that we're entering a new time. Like every, I don't know, 10,000 years or whatever, the sun goes through these cycles. And we've just had our second one. The first one happened like, I don't know, like 12 years ago or 9 years ago. The second one just happened like a year ago. Like the sun is going through these weird cycles. And if it could, at some point, if it has a coronal mass ejection that happens to head our way, it could fry like overnight. Art, like the internet gone, electronic shit gone. Like it could do some weird shit, and that would be rough. It could do worse than that. It could, kill a large number of the people on the planet, which is another good reason why getting to Mars, getting to Titan, getting to Europa, getting farther away from the sun, just in case shit goes weird sideways, could be a good thing for humanity. But anyways, this guy Grant Hancock wrote a book called Fingerprints of the God. There's another guy called Zecharia Sitchin. There are a group of these people that have studied stuff, and they've said, hey man, we think the pyramids are way older than you give them credit for being. And, archaeologists are like, no, it's just this. And they're like, but the Egyptians say it's way older. And they're like, no, that's not real. That's, see here, the line of the Egyptian kings, all of them before this time, those were all a myth. All of them after this line, those were all real. And it's like, that's weird. Exact same story in India. They have the exact same story. They're like, they've got a list of Indian kings that go back tens of thousands of years, and like they're like, well, all of them after this line, those are real. All of them before that line, those are fake. Those don't really exist. And it's like, and the same story goes around. If you remember, about a month ago on Real Life Science, I talked about the Pleiades, the fact that there's a star system called the Pleiades that we have in Elite Dangerous, and it's weird because the Egyptians, the Greeks, the people of New Guinea, the people of New Zealand, the people of Australia, Central Americans, Africans, the Japanese, they all have the same story, which is weird. Which is like, these stars represent a bunch of sisters that are all being chased by some dude through the sky. And it's like, why do the Greeks and the Japanese believe the same thing from like going back thousands of years? Like, okay, whatever. So basically, Solon, which was one of the ancestors of Socrates, who was the lawgiver, he was the lawgiver of Greece, had gone over and studied from the Egyptians, who said, like, yeah, here's the story of Atlantis. Basically, the Atlantis had, like, they were a group of people, they lived, there was a great flood. Now look back. In the Talmud, the Jews believe there was a great flood that wiped people out. In the Bible, the Christians believe there was a great flood that wiped people out. Chinese mythology, great flood, wiped people out. The Egyptians, they talk about the Atlantis, great flood, wiped people out. North Americans, great flood, wiped people out. And now we study and we find that during the Younger Dryas period, about 12,000 years ago, 11,600 years ago, I think to be 11,600 BC, there was a great flood that probably wiped people out. Like, this is not a thing that comes from some weird Native American text. This is a thing that scientists are saying, like, oh yeah, see, like right here, Pulse B, like there was some kind of, they look through the fossil, I don't know how they do shit, I'm not smart, but scientists, legitimate scientists look and say, yeah, there was a big flood around that time. There was like, all of North America was under a huge sheet of ice and then it melted overnight. Maybe there was a coronal mass injection from the sun that like scorched the whatever, or maybe it was an asteroid that hit, just like the one that killed off the dinosaurs. We don't know what it was, but it was a thing. So I don't know. I just think it's interesting about, like, the story is interesting, and a lot of stuff, like, I find it interesting, and it ties into one of my all-time favorite scientific short or sci-fi short stories, which I'm gonna hit up now because now we're moving on to space in the media. So the links to all of these videos are in the show notes for you to check out. Space in the media. Isaac Asimov, his first big story that broke big, that made him a big household name, was called Nightfall. It was a short story that he wrote that was then turned into a novel. It is one of my favorite short stories of all time of his. It is one of my favorite short stories of all time, period. He wrote it in the 1940s, and the idea is that there was sort of this civilization. They live on a planet, and the planet has 8 moons. And on their planet, 8 suns. There's 8. Is it 8? Whatever.
Yeah, it was 8.
Yeah, there was 8 suns, and it was 3 pairs of binaries, and then I guess there was maybe a 4th or whatever. But anyways, on their planet, it was always daylight. People had always lived with daylight. And then there's these guys that they're studying stuff, and they're like, hey, man, we think there's going to be the one sun is going to be on the opposite side, and just by, like, it's going to be a weird thing where they're all of the planets are blocked. They're either on the other side or they're having like an eclipse or whatever. And it's a thing that only happens like every 5,000 years or something. And when it happens, people lose their shit on this planet because they've never known nightfall. They've never seen stars. They've lived their entire life with suns everywhere. And like, they don't have light bulbs in their house because you just get light all the time from outside. Like, it's just a weird thing where they're not psychologically equipped to deal with it. And also, when you see like the stars in the sky, and it comes from, I think it was a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote where he said, like, how amazing if we were to just see the stars in the night sky for one night only. Like, people would talk for decades about how they looked up and saw the city of God in the sky, meaning the stars. And it's just a really sort of neat, very cool story. So this is a story from the 1940s. It made Asimov a big deal. It was his first big story that broke. In the show notes, I have for you the wiki about, the story and whatever, and the different postings in the novel version and yada yada. I also have the short story, the full short story. It's archived and you can read it for free because it's archived because it's that old. I also have the radio play that's 26 minutes long. So if you want to just pop it on while you run around in No Man's Sky or in Elite Dangerous and listen to it as a radio play, it's phenomenal. I highly recommend it. Listen to it for free. I also have the 1.5 hour version of the novel. I don't know if this is illegal or what, but it's not on my YouTube channel, so whatever. Like, this guy put it up on YouTube where he just read out the whole story if you want it. In the 80s, Roger Corman made a cheesy sci-fi movie based off of it. I highly recommend you skip that one, but if you're a glutton for, if you really want to see it, there it is. And I linked a video discussion about the story where this guy did a YouTube where this guy does, like, he rates all great sci-fi books or whatever, and he talks about them in depth, and he seems like an uber nerd. He knows what he's talking about. It's interesting stuff. But anyways, part of this to me is like, what if Asimov wrote this story as like kind of a cover for like, a theory or an idea of like, what if we have the same thing on Earth where we go through these cycles? Because in the short story, it's basically when shit goes south, when you have this one night of nightfall, it kind of like wrecks their civilization and they restart. And they lose their sort of institutional knowledge of their civilization that they had before. And there's this one cult that's there that they kind of have some secret stuff. They have a spoiler alert on the stuff. And they're like, prepping. They're like doomsday preppers that they know it's coming. And they're trying to, next time we're going to take control. We're going to run shit. And it's like, of course they're not gonna, but like, it's interesting. So all of this is in the show notes. All of this is in the stuff. That's one of our 2 sort of sci-fi / space in the media. And our next space in the media is a phenomenal show that I have been recommending for forever, and I don't think it gets enough traction because you say, hey, this show is great, and people don't trust you. So fuck all of y'all. You're going to now watch it for a minute and a half, and I think you're going to be like, oh, I must see this now. So enjoy. It's a minute.
We had set out into the unknown. Explorers of a new world. I was part of the first mission.
Mission Control, we're looking at a red planet.
A new hope for humanity.
For as long as we've looked up at the night sky, wonder, that is what we felt.
Creating a self-sustaining civilization on Mars would be the greatest adventure ever in human history. It would be so exciting to wake up in the morning and think that that's what's happening.
With every discovery,
Right now, we're becoming a multiplanetary species.
with every hardship, I'm worried. I don't know about this.
You had these people taking immense risks.
We were taking a step forward for humankind. We spent all this time looking for something, and they'll bring us all together.
Earth's surface is the shoreline of a new ocean.
Hey, you ready for this?
Are you? Here we go.
God damn, if that doesn't get you excited, I don't want to know you. That, I was just like, oh yes, it's so good. They did 2 seasons of this show. Nat Geo did 2 seasons of the show, and then they bailed on it, and it breaks my heart because I have rewatched every episode of both seasons of that show like 6 times. I've watched, I just watch them, and then I get to the end, and then I watch them again, and I get to the end, and I watch them again. Yes, they had 2 seasons on Nat Geo, and both seasons right now are for free on, Prime, Amazon Prime Video. Yes, they were on Netflix until like a little bit ago, and now they're on Amazon Prime Video. Go and watch them. If they're not free in the country that you live in, pony up the $20 or steal it. I don't give a fuck. I'm not your dad. But go watch them. They're amazing. It is they intersperse back and forth between your following this cast on a scripted TV show set in the 2030s to 2040s, and you're just watching that. But it's like interspersed, cut through every episode. It jumps back and forth a dozen times between the scripted show and an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, or an interview with Elon Musk, or an interview with some NASA guy, or Andy Weir who wrote The Martian, or some kick-ass fucking physicist chick who's like, you got to worry about this or that, or somebody from the Cassini program who's like, well, the real issue with water is that, and it just breaks your mind on trying to figure out like all of the different angles to the immense challenge that is before us with this. And NASA and Elon Musk are going at it, and the ESA is ready to start going at it, and China is going, and Russia is going. Like, this is the new frontier. This is the new land rush, and it's just going to be amazing to see happen. That's it. I love it. It's amazing. I think you should watch it, and I hope that after you saw that clip, you're like, oh yes, I want to go to there, because it's free. Go watch it on Amazon Prime, and if not, you can steal anything on the internet for free. Whatever. Roy, Tweak, do you have anything that you want to add on our space in the media at all?
I got one.
Wait.
Sure.
Yeah, on Amazon Prime, there's a movie that just started, I believe, yesterday, actually, that looks pretty intriguing to me. I plan on checking it out this weekend. It's called The Tomorrow War. It stars Chris Pratt and one of my personal favorites, Yvonne Strahovski. Uh, the premise of it is basically there's a war in the future. Aliens have invaded, some kind of ground Thargoid kind of looking things invaded, and they have to draft people from now to go fight it so that the world can continue. And it looks like an interesting premise. Looks like it might be well done. So kind of curious to check that one out.
Right on. Yeah, I'll watch anything with Yvonne Strahovski. I'm a huge fan of hers from Chuck and from
Mass Effect.
Well, yes, but I'm thinking Chuck and the she's the commander's wife in *Handmaid's Tale*, and she was the one of the girlfriends on one of the seasons of the serial killer guy Dexter. Yeah, she's great. So that's a lot of that's this week's space in the media. Oh, Mars is currently free in the U.S. on Hulu as well as Amazon Prime and Nat Geo, obviously. So go check it out.